Hey, what's up, boxing fans? This is the Rope with Dope Report. I'm your host, Chris Carlson, back with another upload for you. This one will pertain to Gennady Golovkin versus Saul Canelo Alvarez. The whole drama as the world turns with this soap opera of the WBC possibly stripping the 155-pound catchweight. There's just a lot of talk, right? This has basically been a huge point of debate. A topic that everybody has an opinion on. And let's start with the actual stripping, right? Now, a lot of people out there, and for good reason, don't really believe that the WBC will in fact do their due diligence, go by their rules, and actually strip Canelo Alvarez. Right? Usually the bigger star in any sanctioning body, not just the WBC, but usually the bigger star will get the special treatment. And, you know, to an extent, he's already gotten some special treatment just to delay the fight. Obviously with the WBC, if you follow the history, a Mexican and a Mexican-American, they will even get sometimes, you know, further better treatment. That made no sense, but you know what I'm saying. They'll get the benefit of the doubt. And I just totally lost my shit there for a second. All right, I'm back. The cat just did something weird. Anyway, stay out of there. Okay, I'm back. And I get it. A lot of people think that, you know, representatives of the WBC, in Mauricio Suleiman, Junior, or the second or third, whatever the case may be there, the younger one, right? He even said that, you know, if they go in negotiations, that once two camps are in negotiations, it's completely out of their hand, which it is. It is actually out of their hands. So they could, like we've seen plenty over the years, we saw it with Mayweather Canelo as well, that if the two camps decide on a catchweight, then it could be for the belt. However, in this situation, it's a little different because you have Gennady Golovkin being the mandatory to a belt, which, you know, the rules do, and not that they always go by their rules, or they make up rules randomly too. If you're a mandatory, you have that 160-pound limit. You don't have to fight at a catchweight within these rules. So I actually do think that the WBC will enforce their rules in this case. I do think they'll strip Canelo. Now, here's a couple things that could happen. First of all, I guess you could say maybe they will, and I say they mean Golovkin's team, maybe they will give on the catchweight and try to meet halfway. You never know. They could be talking. It could be a lot of talk, and maybe that's the talk to try to meet them halfway instead. Who knows? So that's a scenario that could play out. They could also strip Canelo, right? And that would ensure Golovkin to have the belt, or at least to have the belt and fight somebody for the official title. You know, I'm not sure how they're going to work that out. I don't know if they just are going to give it to Golovkin in that situation, or will they order someone to fight? So say, okay, we stripped our champion, now these two fight. Golovkin and somebody fight for it. That could be a situation. Or they could strip Canelo, and that way it gives the belt at least somewhat in control to Gennady, right? If not full control, like I said, I'm assuming they would order, you know, somebody for him to fight. But that means Canelo wouldn't have the belt, and he would, at least, like I said, be in the right situation for it. And then the two camps go into negotiation. And they figure out either to meet halfway, or maybe, just maybe, Golovkin does go to 155. Because as we know, a lot of Golovkin, you know, Uber fans, they don't like to hear, and I'm not talking about like Golovkin has an Uber company, you know, he's an Uber driver, but you know, the fanboys that's, you know, don't like it when people bring up the 154 to 68 that he and his team claimed until they started putting, you know, butts in the seats and becoming a star. They said anyone from 54 to 68. Now we know that they've adjusted that, which, you know, it happens when you start to become a star. But anyway, they could go down there, right? And that way fight them, but the belt's not on the line. So they can come back up and still have somewhat control of that belt. That's a scenario that could happen. And then if you did weaken yourself, let's say it did weaken him. Some people say it'll weaken him. Maybe it'll weaken him and he's not the same Golovkin. At least he can go back to middleweight and still be in control of the middleweight division. You know, that is a scenario. They could fight that way because the Golovkin camp has really made it clear that they're worried about the belts. They want to collect every single belt and unify the whole, to be the undisputed middleweight. And I think that is very admirable. I think it's great. It's going to be, I think it's that to an extent, okay? Because a year from now, after this year and chunks of next year pass by, and let's say they haven't gotten some of these other middleweights in there, and then the mandatory comes up, and then you got, a possible Wade fight, another Dominic Wade opponent that nobody wants to see, and then all of a sudden collecting the belts won't mean as much because HBO won't want to pay for another tune-up. They're not going to put that on HBO. They're not going to put it on pay-per-view. So I could see a year from now that, that being a problem. I said this on Twitter and just got blasted, but it's true. That could be a problem at some point. At some point, they'll probably have to ditch this, I want to collect all the belts at the weight class. That's just, unfortunately. And that's not his fault. It's not his team's fault at middleweight. They've been trying to get everybody at middleweight, okay? Clearly, a lot of people don't want to fight him. So, I'd say for this point, I'd keep on that I'm staying at 160. But then after that, if we're talking 2017, in May 2017, there is no Canelo and Golovkin fight, then I'd probably start to look other ways. And if a BS mandatory comes up, I would definitely drop the belt at that point. But that's neither here or there, okay? We're talking about right now. What is Golovkin going to do if he can't, and likely he won't, get that Canelo Alvarez fight? Now, I do think, I'm not going to rip him if he doesn't go to 155 and fight Canelo, but I do think he should. Because, like I said earlier, they're the ones who talked about anyone from 54 to 68. Now they've edited it. Now they've New Testament, now they're switching. They've remixed it. And I get why. But personally, I think that's the only way you're going to get them. Or, that's the only way I think you're going to get him, Canelo, in the ring. Unless it's a year and a half from now. And if those other guys aren't, going to fight you, then that's going to be an issue. Anyway, let's move on the Canelo thing. Let's say that fight doesn't happen, period. Because it doesn't look like it's going to happen, and not anytime soon anyway. Maybe in a year, you never know. Which is why he's lingering, and I think it is smart. He was willing to go to 168 for Frach and Chavez Jr., Gilberto Ramirez has been a name that they brought up. And, of course, the Andre Ward situation, it didn't look like they were ready for that catchweight thing. I know now they're kind of switching the story, but there's video evidence of him and well-documented quotes of him saying that it's going to be 164 for Ward. So, that's just... So, Abel Sanchez now is kind of switching it, but, that's bullshit. You know what I mean? I'm not even talking about what happened, of that whole situation, the offers and the negotiation, the no negotiation. I'm just saying in general, Abel Sanchez is full of shit. But I understand what he's doing. He's doing a great job, much like Freddie Roach was the mouthpiece for Manny Pacquiao. I think he's a great mouthpiece, and it's working. He stirs the pot, Abel Sanchez. I don't believe everything he says, and I think some of the stuff is out of left field, but he's doing a good job because Golovkin's not going to really mention that stuff and, that. But anyway, let's just look at it. Here's an example of what I say. At some point, your options are just going to be too limited where you're going to be fighting these BS mandatories, unfortunately. Okay? Look at this summer. Who's he going to fight next? Could he fight Torreno Johnson if he's healthy, coming back healthy? I don't know how long he's out. So I guess you could count that as something, right? An opponent. But if you look at the WBA could slide in and, make Daniel Jacobs, a mandatory at the WBA. Now we know the WBA has 18 different champs at each weight class, but it's not really 18, it's more like 3 and 4, but that's ridiculous, right? So they did say that they're going to Mendoza, I should say. He said, is it Mendoza? Gilberto Mendoza? I think it's Gilberto Mendoza. But anyway, he said that it's their turn. It's their turn, just like the IBF with Fury. Well, they had been waiting their turn with Klitschko, and that's why they said, okay, you're not going to take the mandatory, then we're going to strip you of the belt. Well, the WBA could be in a situation where they say that this is what they just said in a BoxingScene.com article. They did say that they are going to make the Danny Jacobs, make him a mandatory. So that could be a great scenario for him if that were to come out. And when they order it, it doesn't always mean next or by this time or, because it does sound like they'd have to have been okay with who he's going to fight here July 30th, it looks like. Here's my point. Golovkin's team tried to get the Saunders fight, right? Sorry, just taking a glass of water. A little sick still here. They tried to get the fight, right? He said, no, it's got to be a stadium fight. Which, yeah, I think it does have to be a stadium fight over there in the UK. But I think Billy Joe Saunders is going to fight Eubank Jr. in the summer in a stadium outdoor fight, right? That just, there's a strong rumor that's going to happen. I think that's what will happen. We've already heard that Andy Lee and Daniel Jacobs is fighting July 30th. Okay? So those are some of the top guys already taken. He already beat Lemieux. That's not a rematch. The Felix Sturm-Chutinov issue is still a mess, right? Would Chutinov be available to fight him? In that situation, I don't think so. I think they'd probably order that fight or order a fight for Chutinov. I'm not really sure. Not really sure how all that would work there. But this summer, who's he going to fight this summer? Their team's already saying after the fight with Wade recently in the post-press interviews that they want to wait on Gilberto Ramirez. They don't want to fight him next. They want him to build up his name some. So, who are they going to fight this summer and even into the fall? I guess that's what I'm getting at. If we get a year from now, where is Golovkin going to be at middleweight? Now, let's say Danny Jacobs beats Andy Lee, and in the winter or maybe early next spring, the WBA does their job and they say, okay, he's the mandatory. Daniel Jacobs is the mandatory, or the winner of Andy Lee, Danny Jacobs, is the mandatory. And then they could do that. But the only problem with that is likely that'll go to purse bid. So if it goes to purse bid, wouldn't that be a problem for Golovkin, who has a HBO contract? Now maybe HBO, who generally speaking doesn't put up the money for pay-per-views. The promoter puts the money up for pay-per-views. Now, they pay for the fight to an extent. They obviously help advertise and all that as well, clearly. But, the licensing fee to show the replay, how the pay-per-view will happen Saturday, and the next Saturday HBO or Showtime, whoever does the pay-per-view, they'll show it the next week. They do get a licensing fee for that. So they pay for the fight. Maybe they bump up a little bit of money to make this stuff happen. Who knows? But I doubt it with their budget situation, right? So then you got another situation where is HBO going to, have them drop that belt because they can't come to terms? Is K2 ready to put up like $4 million for that fight. I don't know. Wilder and Povetkin was worth 1 to Al Heyman? So you got to figure he would have enough money to put up. I know, everybody says the PBC's done and they have no money, but they were willing to put up 5-something for that. So would K2 give enough? Because Danny Jacobs talked about that fight before, and he said it'd have to be, my guess is he'd need about $2 million, if not a little more, to fight him. But my other point is, I don't know it. I think we'd have a Stevenson-Kovalev situation to where the HBO contract is going to come into play there. So I don't know if that actually is going to work out. You can sit there and call the mandatory, and that's awesome. Danny Jacobs and Golovkin fighting, that's a great fight in New York City. 2 power punchers. Clearly, Jacobs' chin makes him the underdog, but that's a good fight at middleweight, right? And then Billy Joe Saunders, if he gets through Eubank Jr., which I think he will, they talked about a stadium fight. Well, then that would be next summer, So I really don't, I'm not sure. And Saunders hasn't fought a lot of people at middleweight yet, so he has some more options to fight right now because, he hasn't fought really anybody at that weight class, so that means it's kind of fresher for him. So Golovkin's stuck in a situation right now, and that's the only reason why I say at some point, let's say a year from now, if he can't get these guys in the ring, he's going to have to do something. Because it's not like he's getting any younger, let's be honest. And considering the guy doesn't have a resume to get in the Hall of Fame after 35 fights, you can go to 168 and fight Gilberto Ramirez. Maybe at that point, DeGale, the Butte, and the Jack fight, right? Whoever wins that has to face, as long as he gets beat by DeGale, by Medina. That'd be a fight, DeGale. So there's fights up there, but nothing's too crazy up there either. Now, especially obviously with Andre Ward gone, up to 175. So Golovkin's in a situation that a lot of people find themselves, to try to get to that next level to become a star. I mean, Floyd Mayweather fought, 9 years before he fought Oscar on HBO? And he finally got an HBO pay-per-view in 2005, so that, he get his first title in 98 on HBO? So that'd be like a good 6-7 years right there before he even got on HBO pay-per-view. So you need the dancing partner to become a pay-per-view star, and that's where I say when push comes to shove, they should probably go to 54. I'm not going to rip them for not doing it. I don't think they have to. But to become a star, and also to make Mayweather look bad and add to his hype as far as Golovkin, go down to 54 or 55 and beat him soundly and be like, hey, I'm here, Floyd. You fought Canelo here, Oscar here, Cotto here. You fought all these dudes here. Oh, you can't fight me? I'm not saying that fight's going to happen. I'm just saying that would really help him in the combination of beating the biggest star in boxing, right? Which I think he would. And then also saying, what up, Floyd? Oh, I see how you can fight all these other dudes, but I'm not saying he's going to get him out of retirement. But it definitely adds that fuel to that hype, the train, the buzz train, right? That hype, that just, huge. It would just, a lot, and it would put you on the map with a casual fan, too. So what do you guys think, in a year? The next year is huge for Golovkin. Like I said, collecting all the belts, I love it. I love Golovkin in so many ways. But let's be honest. When Martin Murray, who's a solid dude, your best guy on your resume, it is what it is. And I know a lot of people can't handle that, but it's true. And people love this guy, but you know what else people loved about him? He said anyone from 54 to 68. I'm a middleweight that's just like an average middleweight size. Now, we know he's got crazy middleweight power, but he's not a big dude. He's not a big dude. So I'm not saying he has to go down. I'm just saying that you did say 54 to 68. And that's another thing that people loved off right away. You're like, this dude ain't afraid of anybody. He's willing to go up and down because he's in that little area where he said he could do it. So if you said you could do it, do it. That's what I would say. But I also understand their team and how they're moving them. And it's K2's done great. They've kept him busy. They put him in the right spot at the right time. If you look at that Gabe Rosado fight, who's kind of known amongst avid boxing fans right on the East Coast. I'm not saying he has a following, but he's kind of known. They put him in a triple header in New York City, with Salido and Mikey Garcia, young guy at the time, really making some noise. They put him in the right place at the right time, and now they've done a great job with him to the extent where he can sell out on the East and West Coast. And not many people can do that or could do that, period, in the last 5-10 years. You can't really name many. So kudos to K2 and all, and Golovkin and all that, but when push comes to shove over the next year, if they're not able to get the Daniel Jacobs of the world or Billy Joe Saunders of the world in the ring, they're going to have to do something. And that something is either go down to 155 or go up to 168 and try to conquer another division. And maybe those guys at that weight will think, hey, he's not a natural big dude. I can, a lot of people have been talking a lot louder up there. But anyway, it's a rough situation. You could say it's not fair. That's true. But, it is what it is. This is boxing, man. It's really not that fair. So anyway, let me know what you think. Leave a comment. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of hate towards this, but that's okay. That's part of the banter in boxing. Speaking of banter, if you want to follow me on Twitter at Rope-A-Dope Radio for boxing news and, like I mentioned, debate and banter and other stuff too, right? Not just boxing, other sports and social stuff and business stuff. All sorts of stuff. Anyway, leave a comment, subscribe. We'll be digging into this a lot deeper this Wednesday live on Rope-A-Dope Radio. 6 on the West, 9 on the East, 2 UK time. Big shouts out to the UK. Let me know what you think, man. Golovkin in the next year, it's a make or break for him at this weight class. I really think it's a make or break for his career because his resume is not great. Right? It's not bad, but it's not great. And it'd basically be stuck in neutral in the next year. It could be. I hope not as a fan, but then again, I don't want to see another Dominic Wade fight either on HBO. Let me know what you think. Peace.